Why stress is not what's turning your hair gray. If you want to know whether your gray hair can be reversed, don't look at your age. Don't look at your family photos. Look at your last blood test. Because here's what most people have never been told. A significant portion of premature gray hair, the kind showing up in your 30s, your 40s, even your late 20s, is not caused by genetics. It's caused by a set of specific, measurable, completely correctable biological deficiencies happening inside your hair follicles right now. And in 2025, the signs on this shifted in a way that changes everything. Most people believe stress is what turns hair gray. It's practically cultural wisdom at this point. You go through something hard, your hair pays the price. But after years inside emergency medicine, where I've seen what chronic stress actually does to the human body, I can tell you this. Stress is a minor passenger in the gray hair story. It is not the driver. The real driver is something happening at the cellular level inside the hair follicle itself. That has everything to do with what you're eating, what you're deficient in, and whether your body has the raw materials it needs to keep making color. That is what this video is about. Hi, I'm Dr. Leana. I'm an emergency medicine physician, and I've spent years watching patients come in with conditions that were entirely preventable. Not because the cure didn't exist, but because nobody had connected the dots between what they were eating and what their body was desperately missing. Gray hair is one of those dots. For a long time, I thought of it the way most physicians do, as cosmetic, as genetic, as something outside the scope of medicine. Then I started looking at the research, and what I found was genuinely surprising, even to me. Your hair hasn't stopped making color because it aged out of it. In most cases, it stopped because meet Dr. Leana, the biological machinery that produces. Pigment was starved of what it needs to function, and the 2025 data is now giving us, for the first time, a real biological roadmap for turning that around. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 things most people have never heard from their doctor, why stress is not the primary cause of gray hair, and what the actual biology shows is responsible. The 2025 scientific breakthroughs that for the first time give us a real cellular pathway to reversing gray hair. Exactly which nutrient deficiencies are shutting down pigment production inside your follicles, and how to find out if you have them. 8 specific foods with exact doses that clinical research shows can reactivate the color-making machinery in your hair. And an honest answer to the question everyone actually wants to ask. Can your gray hair reverse? And what determines whether it can? One small thing before we get into this. I get messages regularly from people who've been watching these videos for months and had no idea they weren't subscribed. If that's you, take 2 seconds and check right now. It costs nothing, and it's the single most effective way to help this information reach the people who need it most, the ones who haven't found this channel yet. The paint factory inside your follicle, biology explained. Okay, let's get into the science. To understand whether gray hair can be reversed, you first have to understand what's actually happening inside a hair follicle when it loses its color. And I want to use an analogy here because the biology is genuinely fascinating once you see it the right way. Imagine your hair follicle is a paint manufacturing facility. When you're young, that facility runs at full capacity. The raw materials come in, the ingredients, the supplies, the workers process them, and out comes a consistent, steady supply of pigment that colors every hair that grows from that follicle. Now, here's what most people assume happens when hair turns gray. They assume the factory shuts down. They assume it closes permanently, that the equipment is dismantled, and the workers go home for good. But that is not what happens. What actually happens is closer to this. The factory doesn't close. The supply chain breaks. The raw materials stop arriving. The workers are still there. The equipment is still installed. But without the inputs they need to run, production stops, and the hair grows in without pigment. Gray. That's what a nutrient deficiency does to your hair follicle. It doesn't destroy the system, it starves it. Now, here's where this gets even more specific, because inside your follicle, the workers I'm describing have an actual name. They're called melanocytes, and their entire biological job is to synthesize melanin, the pigment that gives your hair its color. Melanocytes don't work alone. They come from a reserve supply, a backup system called melanocyte stem cells. And here's what the 2025 research from NYU revealed that genuinely changed how scientists understand gray hair. Those stem cells aren't dying, they're getting stuck inside the hair follicle. These stem cells need to travel between two specific compartments to do their job. One compartment sends the signal to mature and start producing pigment. The other is essentially a waiting area. In a healthy follicle, the stem cells move fluidly between these two spaces. They hear the signal, they mature, they make color. But as the follicle is exposed to oxidative damage, nutrient depletion, and the accumulated wear of years, those stem cells lose their mobility. They sit in the waiting area. They never get the activation signal. The Factos workers are still there. They're just trapped in the break room, unable to get to their stations. That is the core biology of gray hair. Not destruction, not permanent shutdown. A delivery problem. And a delivery problem, unlike a demolition, is something you can potentially fix. So, let's go through the 3 specific biological mechanisms that drive gray hair, because understanding these is what makes the protocol make sense. First is oxidative damage. Think about what happens to iron when it's left exposed to air and moisture. It rusts. The iron itself hasn't disappeared, but its surface has been chemically altered in a way that changes how it functions. That's exactly what oxidative stress does to your melanocytes. Free radicals, unstable molecules generated by UV exposure, processed food, cigarette smoke, pollution, and even normal metabolic processes attack the cells inside your follicle. When melanocytes absorb enough of this oxidative damage over time, they lose their ability to function efficiently. Their capacity to synthesize melanin drops, and your hair grows in gray. The critical detail here is this: the 3 real mechanisms driving gray hair. Oxidative damage is not an all-or-nothing event. It accumulates, which means slowing the accumulation using targeted dietary antioxidants can meaningfully slow, or in some cases, partially reverse the process. Second is nutrient depletion. Melanin synthesis is not a simple process. It requires a specific chain of biochemical reactions, and each step in that chain depends on particular vitamins and minerals being present at sufficient levels. When even one of those inputs is depleted, the chain breaks. Think of it like a production line. You can have 10 of 12 stations fully staffed and operational, but if station 7 has no supplies, nothing gets through. The nutrients most consistently linked to gray hair in the clinical literature are vitamin B12, copper, iron, folate, vitamin D, and zinc. Each one plays a distinct role in melanin production. And here's what makes this so clinically important. The average person has never had a full micronutrient panel run. They've had a basic metabolic panel, maybe cholesterol, but not ferritin, not copper, not B12 with a specificity that catches a functional deficiency before it becomes severe. So they walk around gray, not because they're getting older, but because station 7 on their production line has been out of supplies for years, and no one checked. Third is stem cell stalling. This is the most exciting pathway scientifically because it's the one that opens the door to actual reversal. As I described earlier, melanocyte stem cells need to move between follicle compartments to activate pigment production. What 2025 research revealed is that the primary reason they stop moving is a combination of oxidative stress and the loss of specific chemical signaling molecules that tell them to migrate and mature. One of those signaling molecules is endothelium, a compound whose expression is directly supported by a plant antioxidant called luteolin. When luteolin is present at adequate levels, endothelin expression is maintained. The stem cells receive their activation signal, they migrate, they mature into functional melanocytes, and pigment production continues. When luteolin is absent, as it is in most Western diets, that signal degrades, the stem cells stall, the hair turns gray. This is the mechanism behind the 2025 Nagoya University study that made international headlines. And it's the reason why the protocol I'm about to give you is built around specific foods and not supplements. Now, I want to take you through the specific research behind this because I am not going to ask you to change what you eat based on speculation. Every intervention I recommend has a documented mechanism and peer-reviewed evidence behind it. Study 1, Nagoya University, Japan, 2025. Researchers bred a line of mice that grayed the same way humans do, progressively with age. They then tested 3 separate antioxidant compounds. The results for luteolin were complete reversal of graying, not partial restoration, not slowing of the progression, complete reversal. The mechanism was the preservation of endothelin expression in the follicle, maintaining the chemical signal that keeps melanocyte stem cells activated and mobile. The luteolin group maintained full fur pigmentation through the period when untreated mice had gone entirely gray. Now, this was an animal study. Human clinical trials are the necessary next step, and I will not overstate what mouse data tells us about human biology. But the mechanism is real, the compound is real, and the foods that contain it are safe, accessible, and have a wide range of other documented health benefits. Study 2 is NYU Langone Health 2025. This study used advanced follicle imaging to map the behavior of melanocyte stem cells across hair growth cycles in live subjects. What researchers observed was that stem cells in gray follicles were not absent. They were present but positionally fixed, trapped in the follicle's resting compartment, unable to migrate to the compartment where they would receive the maturation signal. Lead investigator Dr. Chi Soon described this as a potential pathway for reversing or preventing the graying of human hair by helping germ cells move again. This is the science that distinguishes gray hair from male pattern baldness, where follicles are genuinely damaged. In gray hair, the structure is intact. The workforce is present. What's missing is the signal and the mobility. Study 3 is Cell Biology Journal 2021. This study addressed the stress question directly, and its findings are more nuanced than most headlines suggested. Researchers digitized individual hair strands from volunteers, mapping pigmentation levels across the physical length of each strand. What they found was that gray did not appear uniformly. It appeared in segments correlating with specific periods of reported high stress. But here's the finding that didn't make the headlines. In several subjects, the gray segments were followed by a return of pigmentation during periods of lower stress, meaning stress-related graying showed evidence of spontaneous reversal when the stressor was removed. This tells us 2 things. First, stress-driven gray hair is not necessarily permanent. Second, stress is a trigger that depletes the system, not a cause of permanent structural damage to the follicle. The implication, if you address the biological depletion that stress accelerates through nutrition, sleep, and targeted supplementation, you may recover pigmentation that stress-related episodes removed. Study 4 is Curious Journal 2025. A clinical study of 30 adults using a standardized rosemary extract intervention documented both improved hair quality scores and a measurable reduction in gray hair density over the treatment period. 30 participants is a small cohort, and larger randomized controlled trials are needed before rosemary extract becomes a clinical recommendation, but the mechanism is plausible. Rosemary contains rosmarinic acid, which has documented antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties in follicular tissue. It joins a growing body of evidence suggesting that plant-derived compounds that reduce oxidative burden in the follicle can meaningfully alter the gray hair trajectory. So, let's build the protocol. This is what I would tell a patient sitting across from me who wanted to give their hair follicles the best possible biological environment for maintaining what for. Studies from 2025 actually show, and potentially recovering pigmentation. Celery. Target 2 medium stalks daily. Timing any meal. Celery is currently the most well-documented dietary source of luteolin, the antioxidant at the center of the Nagoya University reversal study. 2 medium stalks gives you a meaningful concentration of luteolin alongside apaginine, a related flavonoid with documented anti-inflammatory effects in follicular tissue. Eat it raw or very lightly cooked. Heat degrades luteolin content significantly. Broccoli. Target 1. Cup lightly steamed 4 to 5 times per week. Timing lunch or dinner. Broccoli delivers luteolin and sulforaphane, one of the most potent dietary activators of the body's internal antioxidant defense system called NRF2. Activated NRF2 directly reduces oxidative damage in follicular tissue, addressing pathway 1. Preparation note. Steam for exactly 3 to 4 minutes. Do not boil. Boiling destroys the enzyme that converts glucaraphin into active sulforaphane. Eat the stems. They contain twice the sulforaphane concentration of the feuettes. Eggs. Target 2 whole eggs daily. Timing morning with a fat source. Eggs are one of the most bioavailable sources of both vitamin B12 and biotin in any diet. B12 is the most common nutritional deficiency linked to premature gray hair. 2 whole eggs daily, yolk included, covers a significant portion of your B12 requirement and provides the sulfur amino acids your follicles need to maintain keratin structure. If you're plant-based, this is the most difficult deficiency to address through food alone, and supplementation becomes non-negotiable. 4. Oysters. Target 3 serving twice per week. Timing with a meal containing vitamin C. Oysters are the single highest dietary source of both copper and zinc. Copper activates tyroneses, the enzyme that catalyzes the actual production of melanin from its precursor molecules. Without adequate copper, that reaction cannot complete, regardless of how functional everything else in the system is. If oysters aren't accessible, substitute with beef liver at the same serving size. It provides copper, zinc, iron, and B12 in one food. 5. Wild-caught salmon. Target 4 ounces serving 3 times per week. Timing any meal. Salmon addresses 3 simultaneous deficiencies: vitamin B12, vitamin D, and omega-3 fatty acids. Vitamin D deficiency is consistently found in populations with premature gray hair and plays a documented role in follicular melanocyte function. 4 ounces of wild-caught salmon provides roughly 80% of daily B12 requirements and meaningful vitamin D in a single serving. Farm salmon contains significantly lower omega-3 content. This distinction matters for the anti-inflammatory benefit to follicular tissue. 6 dark leafy greens. Target 2 packed cups daily. Variety: spinach, kale, Swiss chard, arugula. Timing with meals. Dark leafy greens are your primary dietary source of folate, vitamin B9, which plays a direct role in the methylation reactions required for melanin precursor synthesis. 2 packed cups daily, rotated across varieties, gives you folate alongside iron, calcium, and vitamin K. If you eat plant-based iron from greens, pair every serving with a vitamin C source, a squeeze of lemon, a few cherry tomatoes to increase iron absorption by up to 3 times. Sunflower seeds. Target 2 tablespoons, approximately 20 grams, daily. Timing: as a snack or salad topping. Sunflower seeds are one of the most concentrated dietary sources of pantothenic acid, vitamin B5, which plays a documented role in melanin production. 20 grams daily is achievable, inexpensive, and delivers B5 alongside vitamin E, which independently reduces oxidative burden in follicular tissue. 8. Green tea. Target 2 cups daily. Temperature 175 degrees Fahrenheit, never boiling. Timing morning and midday. Green tea's primary active compounds, EGCG, and related cacans, directly reduce the oxidative load in follicular tissue that drives pathway 1 graying. Critical preparation rules. Never brew with boiling water. Temperatures above 185 degrees Fahrenheit denature the cacans before you can absorb them. Do not add dairy milk. The proteins in milk bind cacans and reduce absorption by up to 80%. A squeeze of lemon increases bioavailability significantly. The 8 food protocol, exact doses included. Plant-based milk is fine. 4 things I tell patients that most people aren't going to hear anywhere else. First, and most ignored one, is get the right blood test, not the standard one. When you go to your doctor and ask about gray hair, they'll likely run a basic metabolic panel. That won't tell you what you need to know. Ask specifically for serum ferritin, not just hemoglobin, which can look normal even when your iron stores are critically low. Serum B12, 25-hydroxyvitamin D, RBC folate, serum copper, and thyroid panel including TSH and free T3. Hypothyroidism is a frequently missed accelerant of gray hair. It disrupts the hormonal environment the entire follicle depends on. If your deficiencies keep recurring despite dietary correction, thyroid function is the next place to look. Tip 2 is luteolin and quercetin together. The luteolin in celery, broccoli, and peppers is significantly more effective when consumed alongside quercetin, a related flavonoid found in onions, capers, and apples. The two compounds work synergistically on the NRF2 antioxidant pathway, amplifying the oxidative protection to the follicle beyond what either compound achieves alone, building meals that include both. A stir-fry with broccoli, onions, and peppers is more effective than eating these foods in isolation at separate times. Tip 3 is 90 days is your minimum measurement window. Hair grows approximately half an inch per month. If there is a biological change occurring at the follicle, that change will not be visible on the scalp for weeks to months. Commit to 90 days of consistent dietary change before making any assessment. Photograph the same area of hair in the same lighting at the same time each month. The change when it occurs is gradual, and you will miss it without documentation. Tip number 4 is address the gut before the hair. B12, iron, copper, and folate all require healthy gastrointestinal absorption to get from your food to your follicles. If you have a history of digestive issues, acid reflux requiring long-term proton pump inhibitor use, inflammatory bowel disease, or significant gut dysbiosis, you may be eating all the right foods and still absorbing a fraction of what you need. The patients who eat well but continue to show deficiencies almost always have an absorption issue as the underlying driver. Working with a physician rather than self-supplementing is the medically correct approach for persistent cases. 4 mistakes I see consistently, and none of them are your fault because no one told you otherwise. Mistake 1. Treating all gray hair the same. Genetic gray hair that began in your 50s or 60s through a natural, gradual process operates differently from premature gray that appeared in your 30s or 40s. The protocol I've described is primarily targeted at deficiency-driven and oxidative stress-driven graying. The correction before committing to a nutrition-based intervention. Get the blood panel done. If your micronutrients are all within optimal ranges and your thyroid is functioning normally, looking at a different biological picture, and a physician can help you set realistic expectations. Mistake 2. Supplementing without testing. Supplementing without knowing your baseline levels has 2 problems. First, you may be supplementing a nutrient that isn't deficient and missing the one that actually is. Second, some nutrients, copper in particular, have a narrow therapeutic window. Too much copper is as problematic as too little. The correction? Test first, supplement second, every time. Mistake 3. Looking for results in the mirror instead of at the root. Gray hair that has already grown out of the follicle will not change color. The only place where a biological shift can manifest is at the root in new growth. Most people checking for results are looking at the overall appearance of their hair, which is dominated by gray that's already there. The correction: examine new growth at the root line in natural lighting monthly. Use a magnifying mirror if needed. Mistake 4. Using topical products as a substitute for internal nutrition. The biology of gray hair happens in the dermal pill, the deepest part of the follicle fed by the bloodstream. Topical products cannot reach this compartment in a way that meaningfully alters melanin synthesis. The correction: the follicle is fed from the inside. The protocol begins at the table, not in the shower. I want to end with something important. Gray hair is not proof that your body is, 4 pro tips your doctor won't tell you, has given up. In the majority of cases I've reviewed in the research, and particularly in cases of premature graying, the follicle structure is intact. The melanicized stem cells are present. The biological capacity to produce pigment is still there. What's missing is the signal, the raw materials, the protection from oxidative damage that allows the system to keep running. The patients who reversed premature graying were not genetically exceptional. They were not running experimental treatments. They simply corrected what was missing, methodically, patiently, consistently, and gave their follicles the biological environment they needed to do what they were designed to do. These systems exist in you right now. The machinery hasn't been dismantled. The workers haven't left. All they may need is for the supply chain to start working again, and that unlike your genetics, unlike your age, unlike your family history, is something you have the ability to influence starting today. Let's recap everything we covered. Gray hair is primarily a biological supply chain problem, not a shutdown. The melanocyte stem cells responsible for hair color are present in most gray follicles. They're stalled, not gone. Stress is a contributing trigger, not the primary cause. Stress-induced gray hair has documented evidence of spontaneous reversal when the underlying biological depletion is corrected. The three core mechanisms driving gray hair are oxidative damage to melanocytes, specific nutrient, deficiencies disrupting melanin synthesis, and melanocyte stem cell stalling from lost chemical signaling. The 2025 Nagoya University study showed complete gray reversal in mice using luteolin found in salarine, broccoli, peppers, carrots, and onions. The 2025 NYU research confirmed that stem cells are positionally trapped, not dead, opening a real biological pathway for reversal. The 8 foods to build your protocol around: celery, 2 stalks daily; luteolin; broccoli, 1 cup steamed 4 to 5 times a week; luteolin plus sulforaphane; steam only, never boil; eggs, 2 whole eggs daily; B12 plus biotin; oysters, 3 twice weekly; copper plus zinc; wild salmon, 4 ounces 3 times a week; B12 plus vitamin D plus omega-3; dark leafy greens, 2 packed cups daily; folate plus iron; sunflower seeds, 2 tablespoons daily; B5 plus vitamin E; green tea, 2 cups at 175 degrees Fahrenheit daily; pecans, no dairy milk. Get a complete micronutrient panel: ferritin, B12 hydroxyvitamin D, RBC, folate, serum, copper, and full thyroid panel before supplementing anything. Minimum measurement window is 90 days. Document root line, new growth, monthly in consistent lighting. If this video gave you something useful, a new way to look at gray hair, a clearer picture of what your body actually needs, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Gray hair is one of those topics where the misinformation is loud and the real science is buried. This video doesn't have to stay buried. Subscribe if you haven't. Every video I make is built on the same foundation: peer-reviewed research, clinical context, and practical steps you can actually take. Like this video if it helped you, and drop in the comments which nutrient you're going to get tested for first. I read everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Dr. Leana out.